Am I the antagonist for gleefully replying yes after my friend gleefully said you couldn't care less? I will try my best to accurately summarize this conversation that took place between me, a 23-year-old female, and my friend Omar, a 20-year-old male, regarding drugs. Recently, I mentioned the drugs I've tried, but Omar mistakenly believed that I had never taken any drugs due to my previous statement about not doing drugs because of my family's issues with alcoholism. I realize now that I wasn't clear enough in explaining that I have tried drugs before, and I take responsibility for that miscommunication. In the past, I have also expressed my belief that drugs are not inherently bad, but rather how they are used and the context in which they are used matters. During our conversation today, while we were having a good time, Omar expressed his disappointment in me for ever taking drugs. I responded with a casual okay, in an attempt to brush it off. He jokingly or perhaps gleefully replied, "You couldn't care less," to which I responded with equal glee, saying yes. Surprised, he asked whether I was serious, and I cheerfully affirmed my previous response. He then expressed that he found my behavior disrespectful, stating that I disregarded the opinion of a loved one despite my genuine affection for him. I was caught off guard and puzzled by the sudden shift in tone. Omar went on to say that not only was my response disrespectful, but he also questioned why he even continued to be in contact with me, suggesting that he should be extremely angry. I admitted that I didn't fully grasp how my words were disrespectful, and he insisted that it was objectively so. I acknowledged that my wording may have been off, although I didn't say anything specific, and I recognized his point of view. However, I couldn't understand why I should feel anxious or worry about his disapproval of actions I had taken years ago. He asked me why my only two reactions to his statement of disappointment were either anxiety or disrespect. I realized that I may have been too rigid in my response, and I'm uncertain how I should have reacted differently. Omar also mentioned that he initially thought I was joking, but my firm yes-d made it clear that I was serious, even though I intended to keep the mood light. Regrettably, I don't recall much of the conversation after that, but I went silent for a while before breaking the silence with the statement, "Well, I won't do it again," referring to taking drugs. Omar responded, "That's an answer at least." I fell silent once more, and he abruptly ended the call without allowing me to say goodbye. I understand his decision as he felt hurt by my perceived disrespect. I later apologized via text, acknowledging that I could have acknowledged his concerns, but I have not received a response from him after hours. I'm feeling confused and uncertain about his reactions. I used to believe that I wasn't the one at fault, but now I question whether I may have become the asshole. Your friend Omar expressed disappointment in you for taking drugs, even though you had previously mentioned trying them and expressing your belief that they are not inherently bad. It's clear that there was a miscommunication or misunderstanding between you both. When Omar jokingly asked if you didn't care about his opinion, you responded gleefully and playfully, which is understandable given that you didn't think he was serious. However, he took offense to this and perceived it as disrespectful. It seems that you didn't intend to be disrespectful, but there was a misinterpretation of your tone. You apologized for any offense caused and acknowledged his concern, which shows remorse and willingness to address the issue. It's now up to Omar to respond and accept your apology. Am I the antagonist for telling my wife she needs to stick to a budget? My wife, 37 years old, and I, 40 years old, live in a city where the cost of living is very high. Luckily, we both have successful careers and earn high salaries. We have a 4-year-old child who attends pre-K for 5 days a week from 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Our child also sleeps well from 7:30 p.m. to 7 a.m. We hire cleaners who come twice a week, and we split the remaining household chores equally. We have a written schedule that includes cooking, dishes, taking care of our dog, doing laundry, and so on. My wife is usually the primary caregiver for our son, and taking care of him can be more stressful for her than it is for me. Our son often demands her attention, whereas when I watch him, he is content playing on his own. About a year ago, we made the decision for my wife to stop working. After our son was born, she found it challenging to balance her demanding job with family life. We had a full-time nanny, and our son had a good sleep schedule, but it was still difficult to manage everything while working 70, 80 hours per week. This change has been wonderful for our relationship, as well as my wife's mental and physical well-being. Previously, the stress from her job was negatively impacting our marriage, and divorce seemed likely. While my job is less demanding, averaging 40 hours per week, I am fortunate enough to earn enough to comfortably support us, as long as we maintain a, in my opinion, high budget. This has been the case for a few years. When my wife was working last year, her monthly income after taxes was $9,000, which was entirely discretionary. I've been responsible for paying for housing, pre-K, childcare, dining out, groceries, insurance, and so on. As part of my wife's decision to stop working, she agreed to reduce her discretionary budget to $6,000 per month. However, she has been consistently exceeding this amount by an average of $1,000 per month, and I haven't discussed it with her yet. Recently, my wife mentioned in passing that she wanted to buy an expensive gift for her best friend's birthday. However, she does not have the money for this purchase within her current budget, as she has already overspent for the rest of the year. I had a conversation with her, expressing that I am happy to fund the gift, but moving forward, if she wants to buy expensive items that are not within the budget, she needs to save specifically for them. I do the same thing myself with a discretionary budget that is 60% of hers. This conversation caused my wife to become angry with me. She said she understood and didn't argue, but when I asked how she was feeling, she responded with nothing productive to say. She also mentioned that she wants to audit how much I spend on gifts so that our spending is equal, which I find ridiculous. My gift purchases are already accounted for within my discretionary budget, which is 40% smaller than hers, and I consistently stick to it. For the past 2 days, my wife has been sulking and avoiding discussing the matter with me. I believe I am being more than reasonable in this situation, but perhaps I am not? It seems like you and your wife had a mutual agreement for her to stop working due to the strain it was putting on your relationship. You have been financially supporting the family and have agreed on a budget for her discretionary spending. It is understandable that you would expect her to stick to that budget and save up for any additional expenses. It is also fair for you to have your own discretionary budget that is less than hers, since your income is supporting the family. Your wife's suggestion to audit your spending on gifts seems unnecessary and might be seen as an attempt to shift focus from her overspending. However, communication is key in any relationship. It would be helpful to sit down with your wife and have an open and calm conversation about the situation. Try to understand her perspective and concerns. Find a compromise that works for both of you, such as revisiting the budget or finding ways to save on other expenses to accommodate her desire for occasional expensive purchases. For telling my brother and sister-in-law it's not rude for their kids to say no to unwanted physical contact, my 37-year-old brother and his partner, who is around 33 years old, have 2 daughters, aged 5 and 2. We usually gather for family barbecues every couple of months. After these family events, my significant other, 37M, and I are often asked by my brother and his partner to receive a hug and kiss on the cheek from their kids as a goodbye gesture. Sometimes the kids don't want to, and that's completely fine with me. I'm happy to wave and bid farewell without physical contact. To give some context, the 5-year-old has mild autism, but we have a good relationship. I seem to connect with her on a different level, and she feels comfortable around me. On the other hand, the 2-year-old is still reserved and shy around us. Since we don't see them frequently, she needs some time to warm up to us. During our last meetup, my brother and his partner insisted that the kids give us a hug and kiss goodbye. However, I expressed that I genuinely didn't mind and encouraged them to let the kids decide for themselves. Despite my suggestion, my brother urged the kids to hug and kiss us. I could sense that my significant other was uncomfortable since he isn't inclined towards physical affection. I reiterated to my brother, no, seriously, you don't need to make them do anything. At this point, the situation was making all of us, including the kids, my significant other, and myself, rather uneasy. Then my brother's response completely surprised me. He said, "We're teaching our kids not to be rude." His remark triggered me, and I argued back, clarifying that it is not at all rude for the kids to decline giving us hugs or kisses. In fact, it is perfectly acceptable for them to establish their own boundaries when it comes to physical contact. Forcing them into unwanted physical interaction is not okay, and it might potentially make them more vulnerable in the future. I didn't yell or raise my voice, but I firmly expressed my viewpoint. Perhaps my directness caught them off guard, because I am usually the one who jokes around and lightens the mood in the family. Naturally, they were offended and retorted by saying that they will raise their kids according to their own preferences, and questioned my credibility since I don't have kids of my own. As expected from my brother's coping mechanism, he chose to cut me off because I expressed an opinion about his parenting. This is his typical response when dealing with conflicting opinions. Consequently, I might not have the chance to see my nieces again, or maybe I will. I'm unsure. Everyone tends to tiptoe around my brother due to the fear of being cut off. My 60-year-old mother advised me that I shouldn't have mentioned anything about his parenting choices. My younger sister, 30F, agreed with what I said, but she didn't support me during the barbecue. So am I the actual jerk here for standing up for my nieces? I acknowledge that I'm not an expert in parenting, but I just thought it was common sense to teach children to assert themselves rather than encourage submissive behavior. Maybe I could have handled the situation better? I'm not sure. I just feel sorry for the kids. You did the right thing by standing up for your nieces and their autonomy. It is important to teach children body autonomy and respect their boundaries. By forcing them to engage in physical contact against their will, your brother and his partner are not only disregarding their feelings, but also potentially setting them up for future issues. Your brother's response was defensive and dismissive, rather than considering the valid concerns you raised. It is unfortunate that he has chosen to cut you off because of your opinion. However, it is important to prioritize the well-being and agency of the children involved. Your mother's and sister's reactions may be due to fear of being cut off as well, but that doesn't mean you were wrong to voice your concerns. Ultimately, you were advocating for the best interests of your nieces. Would I be the antagonist for keeping a 5-year-old girl's kitten? About 5 weeks ago, I discovered a 2-week-old kitten in my garbage bin. At first, I assumed someone purposely abandoned the adorable little creature. Since our bins had been emptied the night before, I was concerned that there might be more kittens in them. Therefore, I went from door to door, alerting my neighbors about the kitten and urging them to check their bins. However, no other kittens were found, and no one came forward to claim the kitten. Without any leads and with a hungry and helpless little one to care for, I took on the responsibility of bottle feeding, toileting, and ensuring the baby's warmth. Over time, I bonded with the kitten, and he is now integrating well with my other cats. This week, he will receive his first vaccine, and overall, he is thriving. The issue arose when my husband spotted children at the top of our street playing with kittens that closely resembled mine. Curious, he investigated and discovered how my kitten came into my possession. It turns out the children's cat had given birth to a litter of 7 kittens. 2 girls were allowed to keep 1 each, while the remaining kittens were going to be adopted by other family members. The 5-year-old girl had chosen my kitten right after he was born. When her cousins were selecting their kittens, in advance not taking them, the little girl worried that they might choose her kitten. In response, she and her sister sneakily hid the kitten in my garbage bin, which they believed was the best hiding spot. Within 10 minutes of being in the bin, I found the kitten and brought him indoors. Approximately an hour later, we started notifying neighbors, but the family happened to be out for dinner, so there was no answer when we knocked on their door. About 20 minutes after hiding him, the girls returned for the kitten once their cousins had made their choices. However, by that time, our bin had been brought inside, and they were too apprehensive to approach us or confess to their parents out of fear of getting in trouble. While the little girl wants her kitten back, I've invested significant time and effort into caring for and raising him. Giving him up now would truly break my heart. At the same time, denying the little girl her chosen kitten would also be devastating for her. Therefore, I need to determine whether I would be in the wrong for keeping my little man. You have clearly put in a lot of effort and care into raising this kitten, and it would be heartbreaking for both you and the kitten to be separated now. It was not intentional on your part to take the kitten, as you genuinely believed it was abandoned and took the necessary steps to find its owner. Furthermore, since the family has visited and the kitten's behavior caused an incident, it seems that they may have lost interest in having him back. While it may be difficult for the little girl to understand, you have provided a loving home for the kitten, and it is now thriving under your care. Keeping the kitten seems like the best decision for both you and the little ball of fur. Would I be the antagonist if I hire a nanny to help with childcare after my wife got a new job? My wife and I have been married for 12 years and have 3 kids. We both work full-time, with me being the primary earner. Recently, my wife was offered a promotion at her job. Although it wouldn't significantly increase her pay, it would give her more responsibilities, including being on call several nights a week. When she told me about it, she was very excited and saw it as a great opportunity for her career. I was happy for her, but expressed my concerns about how her schedule and on-call duties would affect our family. She reassured me that being on call wouldn't be a problem and that she would be compensated for that time, even if she wasn't called in. I respected her decision, but mentioned that I didn't think the extra money was worth the challenges it would bring to our lives. She ended up accepting the promotion, and as luck would have it, she was called in about half the time. This meant we had to find alternative rides for our kids, cancel plans, and adjust our routines. I also had to take on more household chores and childcare duties. Since she took this promotion, we've been arguing more than ever, although she believes it's a stepping stone to something better. To address the difficulties, I suggested hiring a nanny for the nights she's on call. This would provide assistance when she's called in, allowing me to manage activities, prepare dinner, or complete other tasks. However, she dismissed the idea, claiming that me handling everything wasn't a big deal. After a 3-week stretch of her being called in 3 nights a week, I informed her that I would look into hiring a nanny, even without her agreement. I also mentioned that my position would change if she tried to get her previous job back or look for a different one since her promotion isn't working for me or the kids. She didn't take this well and accused me of being a lazy parent, suggesting that I want to avoid my responsibilities as a father by hiring a nanny. She also argued that the cost of a nanny would negate the additional income from her promotion. When I explained that it would actually cost more, she became even more upset. She hasn't given a time frame for how long she plans to stay in this position and seems indifferent to how I feel about the situation. I'm considering going ahead and hiring a nanny because this situation is becoming unsustainable for me. I believe her promotion has blinded her to the negative impact it's having on the rest of the family, and I refuse to continue enduring it without any changes. Am I in the wrong here? It seems like you've approached this situation with understanding and concern for your wife's career goals. You expressed your concerns beforehand and even suggested a potential solution by hiring a nanny. It's not fair for your wife to dismiss your feelings and accuse you of being lazy. It's important to have open and honest communication about how her promotion has affected your family and explore potential compromises. It's reasonable for you to consider hiring a nanny if the current situation is causing significant strain on your household. Would I be the antagonist if I went for full custody and child support? I, 28-year-old female, and my ex, 31-year-old male, We're in a relationship for 12 years and have 3 children, 11-year-old male, 6-year-old female, 5-year-old male. Towards the end of 2021, I expressed to my ex that I no longer wanted to be together. This decision came after several years of feeling generally unhappy. He had a strong focus on playing video games, had inconsistent employment since 2017, and showed minimal help with household chores and the kids unless I specifically asked. Even when he did help, he made a big deal about it. Despite my attempts to encourage him to seek therapy and work on himself, he refused. I became exhausted from juggling the responsibility of taking care of our children and managing the household on my own, so I eventually gave up. In early 2022, he contracted COVID-19, which eventually led to the discovery of a small node of cancer in one of his lungs. I took care of him throughout this process, but it seemed like he interpreted my actions as a sign that everything was back to normal. I had to reiterate to him that I still did not want to be in a relationship and that he needed to prioritize getting his life together for the sake of our children. I gave him my first car, which I paid for, because I had gotten a new one, but he never made an effort to obtain his own vehicle. He briefly found employment, but lost the job within a few months. Knowing that he would receive a substantial tax return based on his income, I had him claim one of the kids on his taxes. He ended up receiving close to $10,000, but spent it all on fast food, video games, weed, and other personal desires. He did not spend any of it on the kids or finding a place for himself. After squandering his money, he got a job at Jimmy John's and applied for income-based housing, which takes a significant amount of time to get approved. In the meantime, he would only work a few hours a day and then spend the rest of his time on the computer until he felt like eating, sleeping, or going somewhere. Frustrated with his lack of progress, I told him in June of 2023 that he had until the end of July to move out. I offered to help with a deposit if he found a place where he could have the kids, but he asked me to take out a loan in my name for him, which I refused. On June 8, 2023, he left to rent a room from a random man he found on Facebook. Just to clarify, the home we live in is owned by my mother, and I pay her directly for it. Since June 8th, he hasn't had the kids stay overnight even once due to his lack of space. He has seen them for a total of 2 days and 6 hours since moving out, usually about once a week with an average visit lasting 1.5 to 4 hours. Typically, he just takes them to play with his friend's kid rather than actively engaging with them. Moreover, he has contributed less than $3,000 in total towards the children throughout the year. All the people in our lives, including friends and family, keep urging me to pursue child support and take full custody of the kids. However, I am conflicted because I do want him to be involved in their lives, and I hope he can better himself for their sake. But at the same time, I think he may not be capable of handling the responsibilities. There are times when I do need financial assistance for the kids. So, would I be the asshole if I went for full custody and child support? Based on the information provided, it seems like you have been taking on the majority of the responsibilities for the children and the household, while your ex has been neglectful and uninvolved. It is completely reasonable for you to want him to step up and contribute more to their well-being. Seeking full custody and child support would be a logical next step to ensure that the children's needs are adequately met. Your ex has had multiple opportunities to change his behavior and improve himself, but has consistently failed to do so. Your priority should be the well-being of your children, and if seeking child support is necessary to provide for them, it would not make you the asshole. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.